Maryland Governor Wes Moore is making the case that he can fix his state's budget $3 billion deficit. I'm interested to see how. And how's he going to do it? With tax cuts under a new tax plan that he announced just yesterday. 82% of taxpayers in the state of Maryland will see their taxes go down or not impacted at all. Democratic Governor Wes Moore of Maryland has to join us because I need him to explain to us how in the world he's going to pull this off. Governor, this is a big plan. This budget gap is massive. The average person there, and you know I like math and I really like economics, the average person would think it's tax hikes as the only solution. Tax cuts, I don't see it.
Yeah. Well, because you're right. I mean, and we inherited a crisis. You know, we inherited really is what the worst fiscal crisis that our state has seen in 20 years. And there's only one way you're going to get out of that, and that's economic growth. And the way you're going to stimulate economic growth is actually by providing more capital for people to be able to be the stimulants of that growth. And so I'm very proud that the package that we have released today, it cuts taxes for 2/3 of all Marylanders. 82% are either going to see a cut in their taxes or see no change at all, that we're cutting the corporate tax rate. We're eliminating the inheritance tax. That, you know, we continue to have budgets that are smaller than the year before in the budgets that we are passing. And I know it might seem counterintuitive to people, but the thing that we know is this: if you can find ways of stimulating economic growth and do regulatory reform, permitting reform, procurement reform, like we're doing in the state of Maryland, encouraging businesses to come and grow in the state of Maryland, that's how you're actually going to grow the economy. That's the way you're going to get yourself out of the fiscal crisis that we inherited, and also show that Maryland can lead economically for the entire country going forward.
Let me ask you about that other 1/3, because you are raising taxes on the state's top earners. Are you worried that that could drive some of those folks out of the state, some of those folks who say, you want Maryland to be prosperous, we're the ones who did it, we're your success stories, and now you're driving us out?
Yeah, well, we know that 82% of Marylanders are either going to get a cut or see no change at all. That really we're talking about the ones who will see a small increase are the ones who are making $700,000 generally on average or more. And here's what I know. That there were really 3 ways that we are going to drive that increase in revenue. The first is we have to find ways of being more efficient. I just signed an executive order called really focusing on how are we focusing on government efficiency and also measuring the changes that we can make. That government efficiency that we are going to do is going to save this state over $50 million in our first year alone, and that's just basic efficiencies about how do we cut wasteful spending in our state.
Governor is going to have so the state of Maryland is going to have its own Doge, you know, Elon Musk style. Then what do you think of the federal government's plan to do that same thing?
Well, I think it's always smart to make sure you're pressure testing your government. You know, I think about, for example, you know, I ask a question: how much do state laptops cost that go out? I should not have to get 6 different answers. And I should not have to give a different answer if I'm asking the Department of Labor versus I'm asking the Department of Commerce. I ask about things like fleet management and our vehicles. We have a significant amount of our vehicles that are either not being driven at all or being barely driven, but that are still being on our state's books. So you can be more efficient. And so I actually agree that you can focus on efficiency. I actually agree that you can make sure you're investing in things that are both effective and sustainable. But if things are not effective nor sustainable, stop investing in them. So I think there are ways that you can make sure that you have an efficient government. And my goal is to make sure that Maryland is the most efficient government inside the entire country.
I want to talk about President Biden because I know you heard his farewell address tonight. You were a huge supporter of the president. You were a surrogate for him. You were a surrogate and a huge supporter of VP Harris when she was the candidate. But alas, this is where we are tonight. What do you say to those voters who are looking past all of his extraordinary accomplishments in office, right? Look at everything that's happening with infrastructure. Look at our economic recovery coming out of COVID. What do you say to those voters who are looking past his accomplishments, but they're fixated and they're angry about the choices he made around running for office? Because this is about his legacy now, and there's a lot of voters, Democratic voters, who are upset.
Yeah, I think what we saw tonight was a good speech by a great man. And when I think about President Biden, and people ask me what's the memory of President Biden that I have more than any, and I had the joy and the honor of being a governor to serve under President Biden for the last 2 years. And I will never forget that after the Key Bridge collapsed, and my phone rang at 2:02 in the morning. And when my phone rang, I was told that literally we had a ship the size of 3 football fields that collapsed a bridge that was over 2 miles long, and that the Port of Baltimore, which represents about 13% of my state's economy, was now shut down. The chaos that ensued around that moment, and how one of the early phone calls I got was from the President of the United States, who told me that he was going to stand with us every step of the way, and he did. President Biden is a man of his word. President Biden is a man of integrity. He is a man of honor. And I take that very seriously. And so when I think about the legacy of President Biden, it isn't just his 50-plus years of service to this country in elected office. It's not just his service as vice president or as president, nor the accomplishments that happened during his time in office. It was that we had a good and decent man who sat in that chair. And that matters to not just where the country is right now, but how the country should view itself.
Governor Moore, always good to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much. Great to see you.